Okay, it just turned on the hour for me. I know we're all on different time zones. So we will get started. This is being recorded and we will share this out after the presentation. So hello, everyone. This is the pre-departure orientation for CET film production at FAMU next spring 2025. We're all very excited to have you here and to have you come to Prague on this amazing program. This is going to be kind of a unique and really special pre-departure orientation because we have a faculty from FAMU who is going to talk to you as well about the academics and what FAMU is like. So this is a really good opportunity for you to ask questions to Nick, who I will introduce in just a minute. I also want to say that you are welcome to drop questions in the chat or the Q&A, whichever one is working. We'll monitor that. And because our faculty from FAMU is going to leave right after his part, feel free to ask questions, when he's talking as well, because he won't be here for the whole presentation. So with that being said, my name is Emily McGee. Many of you have not probably interacted with me. I'm more on the back end. I'm the assistant director of our Europe programs. And so I manage the Prague programs from the US. I work really closely with Celine, who all of you have interacted with. Celine, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name's Celine Okome. I'm the student service coordinator for the Prague programs, and you've probably received tons of emails from me the past couple of months. But yeah, I'm very excited that you all are here, and I'm looking forward to speaking about the program with you all today.
Thank you, Celine. And then finally, we have Vanessa Sterling. Some of you may have spoken to her or emailed with her. Some of you have not. She's a really important person, again, based in the US. She's the Director of Health and Safety. So if you have any questions or concerns about your health or your wellness or questions about safety while you're in Prague, she's also someone that you can talk to either before you leave or while you're in Prague. She's not on the call today, but she's an excellent resource as well. And then we also have the pleasure of having Nick. So Nick, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again, Emily and Celine, for having me. It'll be a pleasure to meet you all in Prague in a couple months. My name is Nick Hudac. I am American, but I am also a fluent Czech speaker. I am the academic coordinator on the FAMU side. So along with Kevin Johnson, who you'll meet in Prague a little bit later, I am in charge of making sure things go smoothly on our end. I also teach in FAMU. I'm a film historian, cultural historian, and I will be supervising the program along with the other mentors and so on. So if there's a problem, feel free to come and talk to me. I am sort of the last word on the FAMU side, but I work very closely with CET, with Kevin, with Emily, with everybody in Washington to make sure that your experiences are pleasurable, exciting. I won't say easy. It's not going to be an easy semester, but that they're ultimately very rewarding. So looking forward to having everyone and talking to you soon.
Thank you, Nick. And so again, you will also have many different people that you'll interact with in Prague. Here we're putting the most important people, the ones you'll have the most touch points with. Kevin Johnson is the CET academic director. He's in Prague. And again, as Nick mentioned, he's your go-to person for any questions about academics, transcripts, credits, collaboration between CET and FAMU. You will also have a program coordinator who's somebody who is going to be specifically assigned to this group of film students. We don't know who that will be yet for the spring. We're in the process of hiring, but all of our coordinators are really dedicated people, and this is going to be the kind of the non-academic resource that you may have. So this person typically for questions about your housing, for life in Prague, but also this person will accompany you on sets and will be really working closely with Nick and Kevin. So again, thank you, Nick, for being here. It's very late in Prague, so we're going to go right into some of the academic components after we just review the agenda for tonight. So this is our agenda. Again, there's a lot of things that we need to talk about. We may not get to everything, but do remember that a lot of this is in your online resources as well, in your pre-departure guides, and you can always contact Celine with any questions. We'll go over the academics first, and then we'll go over all the pre-departure logistic information, like preparing for your departure, phones, money, health, and then we'll go into what it's like when you arrive in Prague. So those are kind of the three big buckets of topics that we're going to talk about. And again, a reminder that we are eager to hear your questions and your comments, so feel free to raise your hand at the end or drop your questions now in the chat. Okay, so I like to kind of pinpoint some of the most important things before we get into the nitty-gritty. The number one most important thing, obviously, is your visa. I know we talked about this a lot, but you must have a valid visa in your passport before you attend the program. You will not be able to move into the housing, attend orientation, or start at FAMU without a valid visa in your passport. We know that all of you have hopefully applied by now, and some of you have already received your visas, which is excellent news, those of you who applied on the earlier side. So again, keep us updated. That is the most important thing that you can do. Please communicate with Celine if there's any issues from the consulates, if you got your visa, if you didn't get your visa. We really want to make sure that we support you in the process. And again, know that it's fairly typical for visas to come right until the day or two before the start of the program. So if you don't have your visa, don't panic. It's normal for it to take a while. But again, if there's any communication between you and the consulate, please prioritize that, especially if they're telling you that something is missing in your application or something like that. So visa, number one most important thing that you need to kind of think about right now. Another thing that I'll mention is you do have a midterm break in April. So this is important as we get into the logistics of the calendar and the schedule and the fact that, like Nick said, this is a very intensive program and you will be working a lot. You have a lot of class time. You have classes and requirements on Fridays, even on some weekends. So we really want you to remember that the focus is on your experience in Prague, and travel in Europe kind of comes secondary. We don't want to say that that's not possible, but we really want you to focus on your time in Prague and traveling during this midterm break in April. As I said, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Nick.
Can I add something real quick here? Because
Yep.
This is always an issue that comes up. Unfortunately, we cannot tell you exactly some of the dates when you are going to have to be in Prague. You'll get an important dates sheet. I'm sure that Emily will talk about this, but I just wanted to emphasize this now that shooting a film requires a lot of time. So be prepared to have to be flexible on that. I understand often that students want to travel and we encourage it to on the FAMU side of it, but the more you travel, sometimes the less you have to prepare yourself for your shoots. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And you will receive kind of the final calendar with all of these very important dates once you get to Prague, and some of them will be shared prior to that. But we really recommend that you not schedule or plan any travel until you get to Prague, you see your schedule, you understand what life is going to be like and what your commitments are. Because as Nick said, there's a lot of requirements. And you need to be aware of that. I will also say that, we have other programs running in the same time as yours in Prague, and they're different programs. They're not film intensive, and so their schedule is different. And it is a reality that they may have more time to travel and do those kind of things. And that's simply because it's a different type of program. So we sometimes hear students kind of do the natural thing of comparison between programs, but this one is particularly intensive. And again, I said, please keep in mind that you may have some required things to attend and do on Fridays and weekends. Okay, so this is a snapshot of the program calendar. Again, you will have this in your Canvas account when you get to Prague, etc. These are the dates that are more or less set in stone, but again, anything could potentially change other than arrival and departure and the midterm break. So keep this in mind, but please don't plan anything until you get there. You arrive in Prague, there's a longish orientation, which includes CET orientation, intensive Czech sessions, and then that's followed by FAMU orientation. So it does appear like a really long orientation, but all of these components are crucial to understanding the program and life in Prague. There's a lot of really exciting things that are included in your semester as well. For example, at the beginning, everyone goes to Český Krumlov, a beautiful medieval UNESCO World Heritage Site outside of Prague. It's kind of an overnight bonding trip. And then you go right into your core courses that start, and then the FAMU electives start later, and we'll explain the differences between these courses. You also get to go to Berlin again, so that's another reason to kind of contain your own personal travel, because we do take you on a lot of travel as well during the semester. And then things really pick up with the core course ending, the shooting starting, the pre-production starting, then the shooting, then the spring break, and then post-production. So there's a lot crammed into these 5 months. But again, it kind of, the rewards are huge, I think, when you come out of this program. And again, another really important thing that I want to start by saying, and that Nick, I'm sure we'll talk about, is this is a film production program, but you are not shooting every day of these 5 months, okay? Most of this time is spent prepping for your film, obviously, with all the things that come before the couple days of shoot. But please keep in mind and to set your expectations that you will really only be shooting for a couple of days towards the end of the semester. There are a couple of exercises and workshops that happen before that to give you a first sense of working with the camera, but it's a limited time on set, and we will talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. Okay, so going into the academics, I'll speak really briefly here and then pass it on to Nick. If there's, again, if there's several things you need to remember, the next thing that you need to remember is CET and FAMU. This is really a partnership program. This is CET with FAMU, FAMU with CET, CET at FAMU, and we operate in cooperation with FAMU and our colleagues there. This means that it's a hybrid program, and you're kind of in between CET and FAMU and balancing those different courses and different expectations. So that's a really important thing to remember, that, for example, you will, other than the orientation at CET, you're mostly at FAMU. You're not really at the CET center taking classes there. Everything is happening at FAMU. You have CET staff that support you, of course, but you are taking your classes over at FAMU and really being a FAMU student. Nick, tell us a little bit more about why FAMU is such a special place to study.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Emily. FAMU, some of you might know that it's consistently we're ranked one of the best film schools in the world. It's one of the oldest film schools in Europe in general, actually, really in the world. There's a few others that predate us a little bit, but not by much. We specialize in a very comprehensive way of teaching film. So it's not just, here's a camera and go shoot. Everybody learns a bit about every part of filmmaking, from storyboarding to screenwriting to working with actors to being an actor to lighting and sound, post-production, editing, but also cinematography and directing. So you're going to be expected to learn not just one specialty, but everything. Secondly, we, for generations now, have been putting out directors who are not auteurs. FAMU is very much into collaboration filmmaking. We believe that film is something that has to be done as a group because it's impractical to do by yourself. And so you have to learn to work with your groups, your teammates, your group mates, and realize very complicated projects. Last but not least, we are one of the few programs in the world which still shoots entirely on film. This is really important. CET and FAMU, we don't allow any digital in our films. Now, we scan the films after we develop them, and you work with editing them on a computer, but there's a real simple reason for this. Each program has a certain limit to the amount of film we give each group, and every group has to work within that limit. So if you're shooting 16 millimeter, you get a certain amount of film. If you're shooting 35s, you get a certain amount of film. We don't let you put your own money into the production. It's a experience that's based on learning to work within limits. So it's a very important part of the film production, but it also means we give you a lot of control over things like your set, your casting choices, your scripts, your edits. These are all your responsibilities. So at the end of the day, it's a lot of work, but you come out with something, a product that is entirely yours. We don't make the film for you. We don't hold your hand. We're there for guidance, but we want you to make the film yourself. So it's a lot crammed into a semester. You're going to get more out of probably one semester in the CET program than you might get out of years of being on set in other programs. So
thank you, Nick.
special.
And I'll just add that many faculty like Nick are also working professionals and working on other projects other than teaching. And that ties into the point about pedagogy being probably different than what you're used to in the US. Not just because, schedules can change and things are different than what you're used to in the US. And we really ask you to go in there with an open mind. But also because, again, the style of teaching is going to be different. You have people like Nick who are American and understand American students and how college is like. And then you have people who are Czech and many other nationalities who teach differently, simply. So the style of learning will be different. And, the reality is we have students who share that sometimes it is hard, like the feedback can be delivered in a way that can be way more direct than perhaps you're used to in the US. And that is also an adjustment, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the curriculum. I'll talk about this and then I'll pass it on to Nick. The curriculum, again, you don't have to register for anything now on the US side. All of the required classes you have been registered for those automatically. And so everyone is taking what we call the Core Course 1 and Core Course 2, which is basically the entire film process split into different parts. Core Course 1 is pre-production and production, 130 hours, 6 credits. Core Course 2 is post-production and the final product. So you get a grade for your final product, your final project in this film. But again, this is what will appear in your transcript along with beginning Czech language for anyone who has not taken Czech yet. And these three courses are just for you CET students. So you will only be in your CET student group for these 3 courses. In addition, you are taking electives at FAMU. And in those courses, you will be in with other students from other programs and other international students. So again, this is a snapshot of your curriculum. And the only thing that you will be picking in Prague is the electives. We ask that you really are proactive about understanding the electives, which ones you need, checking with your homeschool about credits. And again, Nick will go into more details. The other thing to remember is that the Czech language is front-loaded at the beginning of the semester, so you're getting a lot of Czech at the beginning, and then it finishes by the time production starts to allow you to focus on production. So again, the structure of the semester is a little bit different, but it's all intended to work with your film project. Nick, do you want to add a little bit about this before we go into the course specifically?
So there are a few CET courses. There's a question that popped up about taking CET courses, electives outside of FAMU. It is theoretically possible. However, you are going to be in class for core course relatively late. So you're rather limited into the selection, and it's really not possible to take anything that conflicts with core course. Core course is mandatory. Every program 16 and 35 has to take it. And it's really not just one class or 2 classes. You're actually taking 6 or 7 different courses. So every specialty or discipline within filmmaking has a section in the core course. Core course 1 is 6 weeks. Core course 2 is the entirety of the post-production phase. So once you finish shooting, that's really when core course 2 starts. We grade these not based on how, some sort of subjective, like, did we like your film? No. We grade you based on your attendance, your participation. Some parts of the core course have tests and sort of, check-ins, midterms, assignments, that sort of thing. Some will be entirely theoretical. Some will be incredibly practical. So please keep that in mind. And again, attendance is a real serious thing. We've given warning letters to students before. There are students who've really jeopardized their standing in the program because they skipped class. And it may seem like you're skipping one class or one day of class, but you're skipping like 6 or 7 classes in total, and it gets unwieldy quickly. So please, we know it's a lot, but it's not unmanageable, and it's necessary. We wouldn't assign you this many things if it wasn't truly necessary to give you the background you need, which we would normally spend, a year teaching our students. So, it's an accelerated program, so please keep that in mind. Regarding electives, we will give you information on our FAMU side about electives. These are not always the same electives that are taught year after year. So we check in with our professors, and they're also open to everybody in FAMU itself. So if you're a Czech student who speaks English, or if you're an international student, you're open to take the same electives. That means that, again, as Emily said, it's a direct enroll program. It's not catering specifically to CET, so the responsibility is going to be on you to make sure that these electives will count for credit at your university. Again, we'll give you, usually during orientation, you'll get a complete list of what is being offered that year. If there are situations like that your university is expecting you to take a certain kind of credit, or certain requirements are necessarily for getting credit, like a cultural component or a more academically focused course instead of a practical course, make sure you figure that out now while you're in the States. Because oftentimes students have found that it's a lot more difficult to communicate when you're 6 hours ahead of your high school, or your high school, Freudian slip there, your university or college's foreign affairs or study abroad offices. So make sure that you're in touch with them now before you go. As also you'll notice here on the core course thing, we do a screening of your final films. There will be a couple of big events where you will be presenting your work before your peers, your classmates, and us, the jury, which is basically all the instructors, and sometimes with outside guests who are all incredibly qualified. For example, André Zach often is a guest, and he is the former head of HBO Europe. So there are people who are acquainted with the film industry, who are academics, practitioners, who are, got IMDb pages that are pages long, or have books published under their names. So it's not like we're inviting random people from the university to look at your work. We critique it fairly, but bluntly, right? We don't mince words. We're not trying to give you false criticism. So when it's really good, and we're often, we praise the CET films every year. There's never a year where I say that the films are bad. They're always really great universally, but it's because CET students put a lot of work into them, and we love and respect that. So you'll get that experience, and then you'll also have a public screening of your works, which is great. It's something that's necessary for festivals, but also it's a real celebration of your triumph. You get to show it on the big screen in an actual movie theater, not just our reference studio, but in Prague itself. As mentioned down here, the modules in the core courses include all the different disciplines that you need. And again, we highly emphasize that no matter what your role in filmmaking ends up being, you need to know something about everything. So if you're a director, of course, you need to know how editing works, or the principles of storytelling, or sound design, or working with actors, right? If you're a cinematographer, it's great that you know about using a camera or color theory, but you also need to know how an edit works, right? What footage is necessary for doing a montage, that sort of thing. Last but not least, you'll notice something there called the lighting exercise. I want to call attention to this now because every year we really have to emphasize this. Lighting exercise is one solid week of every practical being on set information you could possibly want. It is mandatory. It is incredibly important. It covers safety. And we've had incidents before where students have, booked a travel vacation, or parents have come to town during that week, and it ends up being a disaster for them. Like, you really need that week to be solidly for you. So please keep that in mind. We'll talk more about lighting exercise when you come to Prague, but it's one of those non-negotiable areas, right? So we need you to attend the lighting exercise before you're on set for safety and insurance reasons. Otherwise, I guess we can move on to the next slide, right?
We will move on, but again, I just want to clarify because this is confusing that we refer to FAMU electives and CET electives. And so just to clarify, you will be most of you, all of you will be enrolling in FAMU electives,
Yes.
like Nick said, that's offered at FAMU. There is the possibility of enrolling at CET electives that are run through our center-based office in Prague that our other non-film students take. But again, it's tricky with the schedule.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if the person asking the question was asking about CET electives or FAMU, but regardless, for both of those options, you will get the schedule in Prague. And sometimes our students are able to take one CET elective in addition to a FAMU elective, but it's pretty limited because the schedules just don't really align.
Yeah, and there's also, if I don't remember, it's been a while since I taught that one myself, because I did that for a few years. But there is also a limit in the amount of students from the FAMU program sometimes that the elective can take.
Yes.
So keep in mind that really like your choices are going to be through FAMU. And again, all the courses that we provide you are in English and accredited, so they're transferable to American institutions. Sometimes people will ask if they can take like animation courses or other courses in FAMU. And that unfortunately usually is no, unless you speak Czech well enough to be at an academic level. Even then, though, in which case we'd have to really discuss it as a one-on-one situation with me and Dr. Kevin Johnson, my colleague, comrade in arms, to discuss if it would actually be possible or feasible for your institution to do it. So we appreciate the interest, but really, you're going to be focusing on the electives in FAMU mostly. And to be quite honest, you have a lot on your plate already. So sometimes students ask if they could take courses at DAMU or HAMU or Charles University. And unfortunately, you're probably not even going to have time. It's a really, really intensive program. So we encourage you to really devote time to your studies in FAMU, but also to your film.
Okay, great segue. Tell us more about the film project itself.
Yeah, I'd love to. So filmmaking, as I mentioned before, the big goal of FAMU is to give you a comprehensive film education. In order to do that, we have a couple things. First off, all of you will be receiving, if you haven't received already, a pre-departure exercise. This is not a mandatory exercise by any means. It's not going to penalize you if you don't do it, but it's very strongly encouraged because it's good practice. And it's something that will come up a lot in orientation. The directing mentor, Esteban Alfaro, will talk more about it when you see him here in Prague. It helps prepare you for the process of creation, which is really what you're going to be spending your orientation and your good chunk of your core course one for. We form groups of 3 to 4 students. Actually, we don't form them. You form the groups yourselves based on the projects that we, the mentors, that's myself, Esteban Alfaro, who I just mentioned, who is the head directing mentor. Other directing mentors, they come and go depending on the enrollment size. But we've had some directors like Leila Basma, who is a Lebanese director who's gotten rave reviews and is currently developing a feature, or Antoine Dessin, who is a French director who's also up and coming, a young director, as well as the production side of things, which is headed by Cristina Capunus, our head of production. So we all sit down and we determine what stories that are pitched by everybody in FAMU CET are going to be viable for this coming semester. We don't often have a specific limit, but we go by based on what the resources are, how many stories are actually doable. So we look for films that are achievable, right? Not a test reel or something that you're going to be trying to expand into a broader work, but something that is a short, self-contained film that we can produce. Groups are 3 to 4 students. That is often broken down into a variety of roles, but director, DOP, and editor are the first and three major ones. Sometimes we have co-directors. Occasionally we'll have a co-editor or co-DOP. It's up to you, again, to decide your groups. You will decide them all together. We have no hand in that matter at all. It's important to mention not everybody can be a director. And if we pick your story, you don't have to direct it. You can propose something else. All students present ideas. We greenlight the ones, as I said, that we feel are interesting and viable. Sadly, we can't take them all. And they must be, again, doable. You will all practice, however, developing other projects in some of the other modules like screenwriting. This could be a good spot for you to work on your own projects. So don't be discouraged if your project doesn't get picked. You'll learn a lot about the process either way. And then you must be flexible about it. For the first 6 to 8 weeks of the program, you're going to be taking your idea, breaking it down, rebuilding it, and figuring out what is actually useful and doable. Again, it's important to emphasize this now because every year somebody comes in with a great idea, maybe a short story or something that happened in their lives, and they get frustrated when the realities of film production collide with something that's in their head. So please, we'll emphasize this now, make sure that you are being a little bit flexible. I'm not going to say learn to kill your baby, but maybe learn to let go of it a little bit. Again, as we mentioned, FAMU is a film-only program, so we don't allow you to check out film cameras. 35 and 16 millimeter cameras are in hot demand in Europe and even among professional shooting sets. So we're often using equipment that we rent from other houses, production houses, simply because there just is not enough cameras to go around. This doesn't mean you can't bring your own camera. You can bring digital and practice. You can shoot stuff for maybe your own work back home. But again, we are not able to give you, sadly, the cameras to go out and experiment on your own. So make sure you understand that limitation before you come. I wish we could give you all Bolexes and tell you out to go out and shoot every weekend, but that's not in the cards. Otherwise, a last thing I would like to mention just on the film aspect of it, the project aspect, there's also a small little homework assignment that will be going out to all of you that's separate from the pre-departure treatment. And that is a sort of list of films that we find to be common touchstones here in FAMU. They're not really 100% required. Again, you're not our student. We can't demand you do anything, nor would we dream of it. But it's good to know or to familiarize yourselves with these films because when you come, a lot of what we are going to be using for examples or discussions will be based off of familiarity of these films. So when you receive, if you haven't received the pre-departure film treatment and the film list already, please give them some thought. Sadly, some years we only get a handful of them from students, and it impacts the quality of the films, I think.
Thank you, Nick. And we'll get to the details of how you're going to receive those and the deadlines in just a minute. So to summarize all the good information that Nick has provided, couple of key items that I want you all to really remember. This is a group project. You will not be working on a solo project, so keep that in mind. Not everyone is going to be a director. That's also important to remember. And not everyone's script is going to be chosen to become a film. So again, these are things that are hard. These are things that are hard and that students, and that we all struggle with. But please remember that so you can set expectations once you arrive in Prague that the work is expected of everyone, but ultimately only certain ideas will be chosen. Everyone will work on the films, but your idea of the script and what you want to do as a role will also change. So really it's about setting your own expectations based on what this program is about.
And that actually reminds me of something that just came up in conversation with students this semester. There is a finite limit to the amount of projects you can be a part of. You'll have your main group where you're going to be working closely in one of the roles as a director, DOP, or editor to make sure it is a success. But then you'll also be often working on your classmates' films as a gaffer, maybe, or a set designer, or an art designer, or any variety of roles, or maybe even as an actor or actress. We encourage this. However, you also have other responsibilities. So one thing that I would like to point out early on is that you can't spend your entirety of the program working on other people's sets. You have to take care of your schoolwork. As Emily mentioned, you have to enroll for electives, and those electives are not part of CET. They do not care if you're on CET sets. So please, again, pay attention to that. Every year, there's always an issue with grades, and I really hate to see that happen when it's avoidable. So pick and choose your projects wisely. We have a limit of 2 additional sets, including your own group. So if you get here and you find that you're in love with everything, you're going to have to make some hard decisions about who to collaborate with or who to help out. And that's part of the game. That's part of the project.
All right. We talked a little bit about electives, but let's talk about them a little bit more, since this is a really important part of the program as well.
Yeah. So the international electives, again, these are the only classes in FAMU taught in English. The other ones are all taught in Czech. Start mid-February. They start a little bit earlier than maybe some classes that other international students have, or students that you might know in other programs in the city might have different start dates. So be aware that those first couple of weeks are pretty much mandatory. Please do pay attention to deadlines for ad drop. Every year, Kevin and I have to sort through requests from people who realize like a day into April that their university is not accepting a course for credit, or that they've taken on too much. Please know your limits. I cannot tell you what is an appropriate limit of courses to take. There is a maximum. I've never seen anyone take more than 4 electives, and that's insane, to be quite honest. Usually people take 2. I think the minimum is 1, but I'd have to double check with Kevin on that. But 2 to 3 is usually what people take, and it's usually fairly manageable. Again, be proactive. Some of the electives might have limits in terms of the enrollments based on the size of the classroom or what other programs want to take it. Some electives are not offered every semester. So if you had a friend that came this semester and they really liked one elective, you might want to check with me or check with Kevin to make sure it's offered this year in this semester. If you do not complete the requirements, you get an F. And this is important. There is no negotiating that. I'm fully sympathetic to a number of reasons why you may not be able to complete your courses, but we don't allow withdrawals. We don't allow pass-fail. It's a straight-up grade system. So if you don't complete the requirements, if you don't sit for your finals or submit your final work, if you miss too many courses, it's an F. And again, please be aware that you need to know what those requirements are per individual instructor. Again, these are not CET courses, these are FAMU courses. So the control over that lies not with CET or me, but it lies with the individual instructors, the department, and the academic senate of FAMU. So if there are questions about it, if it's questions about how to transfer the grades, or what courses or what would be acceptable for your home institution, please talk to Kevin Johnson when you meet him. That's his purview. My purview is dealing with things internally in FAMU. So, for example, if you have a situation where you have to miss class, you are sick, you have some sort of crisis that needs to be dealt with, or that you have an incident in a classroom, you feel that a professor has been rude or a classmate is being unclassmately, uncollegial. That's when I come in particular. I do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you won't see, but in those cases, that's when you come to me. We will give you the syllabi as soon as they're ready at the beginning of your orientation. We don't have an exact date because, again, we are at the mercy of other programs and other departments and other instructors, but we will get you those as soon as possible. And again, if there are questions specifically, if you have, again, certain specific requirements for your home university. Please know those now and come talk to Kevin Johnson and I during orientation, and we can steer you to the right places. The ECTS credit system is sometimes a little bit confusing. Not every university transfers credits in the same ratio. So please, 100%, I cannot emphasize this more, check with your university. Some schools might accept fewer ECTS credits than you might expect. Other schools might transfer the credits at a greater rate. So you might actually end up in a problematic situation where you're being charged extra. So this is, again, not something that we can resolve. It's up to you and your university. Be very proactive about how many minimum and maximum credits you need and what sorts of requirements those credits have to be. Add drop week, we usually give you a week to add and drop the courses, so you can go to as many courses as you want, try them out, see. But at the end of that week, we have to officially enroll you, matriculate you into FAMU. And once we do that, we cannot remove you from rosters. So please keep that in mind. It's a lot harder to add and drop than you would think, just because it's a very complicated Byzantine system. Am I forgetting anything, Emily? I don't think so. No? Did I freeze?
I believe Emily may have froze. Hold on. Let's see.
I was worried it was me. Thank you, Celine.
Yeah, you're welcome.
While we're waiting, too, feel free to ask questions about life in Prague as well, because I won't be able to stay up much longer. It is almost 2 o'clock in the morning here. So feel free to ask away some questions about Prague life. I've been in Prague in the Czech Republic for 12 years now, so happy to answer questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How cold does it get, and like what kind of winter gear do you recommend?
It's a great question, because right now it gets down to like freezing. I spent 12 years in Chicago, and I will firmly 100% say it does not get as cold as Chicago or the North Midwest. So like if you're used to like Minnesota temperatures or whatever, it's not that bad. You're mostly looking at in January, February around, maybe like high 20s, low 30s. It gets warm pretty quickly. You're actually in a much better time weather-wise than the winter semester, because they're shooting now in the winter, and it's not fun. You'll be shooting usually during late March, early April. Often varies a little bit week per week, but around Easter, I think everything should be finishing up the shooting schedule this year. So you'll be, outside where it's maybe a little cold and nippy, but it's not going to be brutal. So pack some warm stuff, warm socks, long underwear. But you also have thrift stores or H&M or a variety of ways if you need to buy some outdoor gear when you get here. Make sure you bring a good jacket, but also it's not going to be like minus 50. I can promise you that.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about some pre-departure information. So as Emily said at the beginning of the presentation, students can't enter the Czech Republic without a visa. So you guys, I know that you all put in a lot of really important work, getting the visa application together. So that's gonna all pay off when, you get your visa and you're able to, come on the program. So you'll need to fly out the day before the arrival day. Historically, some students have had issues getting the wrong dates. So for example, if your arrival date is the 16th, you're going to be flying out most likely from the US on the 15th. And you must submit your travel plans to your online account. And we use your travel plans to coordinate the arrival details. As you know, there's going to be a time period on the arrival day where there's going to be shuttle buses. So we use the travel plans that you give us for coordinating those shuttle buses. So it's really important that you give us that information. We really want to make a note that you can't check in to your apartments earlier than January 16th. So January 16th, your arrival day is the first day you can kind of check into your apartments. And you also cannot stay in the apartments after the last day of the program. Yes, Sierra, can we arrive in Prague a day or two early? Yes, yeah, this is possible. Historically, students have been able to arrive a day or two early, and if the customs officers like say anything, you just say that my visa is starting in a couple days. Like currently, technically, I'm here as a tourist. The big thing on CET's end is that you cannot stay in the apartments until the official arrival day. So if you come to Prague a day or two early, you will have to find your own accommodations until the 16th. That's the only caveat for that. We recommend that you transfer in the EU, but not the UK. And we say that just because transferring through the UK has an extra step. In fact, it has a new extra step called the electronic travel authorization. I'm gonna put a few links in the chat for this portion. Here is the electronic travel authorization. It's essentially this basically digital check mark that the UK requires if you're A, visiting or B, transiting. So if you have a flight to Prague and you're going from, JFK to Heathrow and then to Prague, you would still need this travel authorization. It costs about £10, and they say that it takes around 3 days to process. So it will be something that you have to plan not too far in advance, but in advance enough to where you would need to think about it. And that's all that to say that extra step is why we recommend that students, if you're able to, finding a flight that transfers inside the EU and not the UK. We also recommend that you download WhatsApp to communicate with CET. WhatsApp is a free messaging app that allows you to talk with people from all around the world. All of CET on-site staff use WhatsApp, so you'll be able to talk with them if any problems come up. That's going to be a great place where you can speak with them as well. And yes, Emily is back. Her Wi-Fi dropped, but she's back, and she's going to be helping me monitor the chat as we work through some of the pre-departure stuff. One other thing that you'll need to do is, we're going to speak about this a little bit more in depth, but you're going to need to call your bank to make sure that they know that you're going abroad, because sometimes if you don't call your bank and you start using your card, they may flag your purchases as fraudulent because they weren't expecting somebody in the Czech Republic to, use your your card information or your debit information. So it'll be important to get in contact with your bank, letting them know that you're coming. It's also important to make sure you have a working cell phone. We're going to talk about some cell phone tips in this pre-departure guide as well. And we also recommend that you read some of the pre-departure guides that are going to be in your CET account. So we have a student life account, a Money Matters guide, an academics guide, a student life guide. We have lots of resources that are embedded in your CET account where you can kind of learn more about life in Prague, learn more about, different tips and tricks on how to pack, and, get you properly and adequately prepared for your experience abroad. So in your CET account, around 2 weeks before departure, you're going to be receiving arrival instructions. So that's what's going to let you know, what to do and where to go on the arrival day. It also is going to list the emergency contact information for on-site staff in case you have a problem. And you'll also be receiving your housing list that same day. And on that housing list is going to have your apartment address, who you'll be rooming with, all of that stuff. So we recommend that you print and pack both the arrival instructions and the housing that are going to be in your CET account, just in case, you're traveling, your phone dies, your battery runs out of charge, just so you have all of that information at the ready. And, as a little thing of what to pack, your passport with the visa inside, a copy of the address, cash, medication. We'll speak about that a little bit more as well. And the ISIC card. So the ISIC card is an optional discount card that you can use. It will give you discounts to different restaurants, different flights, different things. I put a link in the chat for that as well. And this is something that is not covered by CET, but you are more than welcome to purchase this for your time abroad. Students have had some great success using the discount cards around their time in Europe. One thing we'll mention for the ISIC card is that this card, the information that you'll provide, it'll be connected to your US university. So when you apply, you're going to pick the country that you're applying, in tandem with is the US, and the university that you'll be applying with is your home university. So it won't be FAMU, it won't be anything related to CET. When you apply for the ISIC, you're going to use the US as your country, and you're going to be using your home university as the university. So is our apartment address different than the one we were given to put on our visa application? Yes. So the visa application addresses that you guys had are apartments that CET owns that are a part of CET's thing for lodging. But you are going to be living in different apartments. I'm going to give you the name of that a little bit later in the presentation, and you're going to be receiving the official address of that in a little bit. As Nick was speaking about, there's going to be a couple of non-required but highly recommended things that you'll be that you'll be given in terms of assignments. The film treatment assignment that Nick mentioned, it's basically trying to get you in a good headspace to and prepare yourself for the types of questions you're going to be asking yourselves and ways you're going to be thinking creatively in the program. Not necessarily what you'll be working on. This doesn't have to be, your big idea that you're going to present and you're going to pitch, but it's just kind of getting your brain working and getting your brain kind of geared towards something creative and something that could down the line be something that you would pitch for your film. Highly recommended, but not required. Students in the past have said that this exercise really helped them really get their head in the game. We had a FAMU film screening, and the two students that presented their films both said that this film treatment assignment was really helpful to how they were thinking about pitching their films at the beginning of the semester. And you guys are going to be doing this assignment on Canvas. You should have gotten an email this week that you guys now have a Canvas account. And this assignment is going to be live around the first or second week of December. And the deadline to submit this assignment will be about a week before you arrive, so January 13th. And Nick also mentioned a provided list of films, like the FAMU film list in preparation for the film program. And this list is going to be in two locations. It's going to be on your Canvas account around the second week of December, but this list is also currently on your CET account. So it's going to be in the documents section of your CET portal, which is the same place where you had the check insurance document. So you have a copy of the FAMU film list there as well. There are 6 films that are, quote unquote, required on this film list to watch. Those ones should be your priority. But the other ones, are just recommended. And if you have time, I definitely recommend you take the time out to watch those as well. In terms of communications, phone services, we recommend that you review your student life pre-departure guide in your online account. We have some, more in-depth information about phone services and what to do there. And we also recommend that, you check your email daily, any updates or informations from me, any different things that I've learned from on site. I'll communicate it to you all to you all there. So checking your email daily and reading our guides, definitely good to reiterate. But for this program, you're required to have a working cell phone because if there's an emergency, if there's something that we really need to reach you on, you'll need to have a working phone. And for this, you're going to have two options. If you want to use your US phone and your US provider abroad, before you leave, you'll have to get an international plan through your US provider. And with this international plan, you'll need to make sure that it includes data, so you'll be able to message check numbers without huge fees. And option 2 would be to get a local short-term plan once you're in Prague. Big step for this one is to unlock your phone with the US provider that you have. Most phones aren't automatically unlocked, so most likely you'll need to call your phone service to firstly check, A, is my phone unlocked? And B, if it's not, how can I, get it unlocked? So once your phone is unlocked, you'll be able to use a check SIM card with your current phone. On site, there will be someone at orientation, a local provider, who's going to help you all get signed up and set up a plan. And typically students will sign up for a plan that has, a set amount of call, text, and data, and they can kind of like purchase more as they go and if needed. And a big thing is we don't recommend getting a phone plan at the airport. If you are using option 2, wait until orientation, wait until CET's, the local provider that works with CET comes and helps you guys get a plan. It'll be much easier and much smoother that way. Something, we also want to emphasize with option 2 is that, you're opening up a check phone account with option 2, but you are also responsible for closing the plan at the end of the semester. Once you're back in America, you don't want to have to deal with, the hassle of trying to, close a check phone account. Once, you're already moved on, your semester's already over. So I know it's early to think about, but keep that in the back of your head to make sure that you're closing that account at the end of the semester. Another caveat, another thing that we want to mention is that CET offers like really small 2006 style like flip phones. They don't have screens on them. You can kind of call, you can text with, number things. It's definitely not an iPhone, or definitely not even really a 2006 BlackBerry, but it's something that CET can offer if you're interested in it. Historically, in the past couple of semesters, students haven't used those really older phones that CET has available. But just wanted to mention it if that's something that you're interested in. If that's something that you want to do, speak with your FAMU coordinator, speak with on-site staff or Kevin when you get there. And another thing I want to mention is that, there's Wi-Fi in your apartment, FAMU, the CET Center, which is always fantastic. But again, always going to make sure you have that working phone for this program. Yeah, so in terms of money, we really recommend that you read the Money Matters pre-departure guide in your account. It gives some good tips for budgeting abroad, for, preparing yourself for some, the financial things abroad. We also offer a budget sheet that I just put in the chat. We offer a budget sheet for both CET Prague and CET at FAMU. And on these sheets, this is kind of giving you a snapshot of some things you may not have thought about in terms of, out-of-pocket costs for food, maybe things for different transportation or independent travel. So really giving you a better perspective of what some costs may be while you're abroad. As we spoke about before, it'll be really important that you contact your bank before going abroad, enable the card to be used abroad, and checking the text authorization option, because sometimes with bank things, if if there is an opportunity where you need to have something authorized, sometimes you'll need to do it through text. And one thing we will mention with a text authorization, kind of beware two-factor authorization. Make sure you kind of if you're able to set it to an email instead of a US phone number, that would be ideal, only because if you're choosing option 2, then you may be using a check phone number and not the US phone number that is, connected to your banking account. So if there is some sort of authorization that you need to kind of set up for your bank when you go abroad, if there's an opportunity to use an email, use that instead. You're going to have some detailed explanations of using credit cards versus using cash in Prague in detail during orientation. And we recommend that you get some cash at the airport, or at the airport around 2,000 Czech koruna, but in your arrival instructions, you're going to have some detailed information about different ways to navigate the ATM systems there. Venmo, unfortunately, isn't used in the Czech Republic, but Wise, Revolut, or PayPal are alternatives as well. And in your CET center in Canvas, there is a section talking about how ATMs can be a little tricky there. And we also always recommend against Euronet. Those ones are kind of the ones where there are just really high transaction fees. You don't want to use those. So if you ever see, a Euronet, don't use those to kind of get your money. Stay away from those, and you'll find more information about some better ATMs to use in your arrival guide that we'll be giving you in the coming weeks. In terms of health and wellness, we have another guide. We have a health and wellness safety guide in your CET account. We recommend that you read through that as well and disclose any living and learning accommodations to CET as soon as possible. For students who do have those accommodations, most students have already reached out to me, but if there's something that is either not on your CET account or something that is recent, please let me know as soon as you can, so we can, work out ways to help you during your experience abroad. And we can take everything as much as we can into consideration during your experience abroad. And if there are any changes to what you submitted in your health and wellness form, please let us know ASAP as well, just so we can have the time to arrange. So there are a couple of different health insurances that you should be made aware of. GeoBlue is what you're going to be using on the ground. It'll be what you're using to schedule doctor's appointments. If you use therapy, that's what you'll be using for therapy as well. So that's what you're going to be using on the ground. You got hard copies of those forms in the mail for your Czech visa application. And we also gave you a Czech insurance document. It was more so a bureaucratic formality. You're not going to be using the Czech insurance at all when you're in Prague. The consulates just need to see that you have it to release your visa and to give you a visa. So that is why we include it. You're not going to be using the Czech insurance. You're just going to be using GeoBlue. And something important is that you'll need to bring enough prescription medication to cover your entire time abroad. And if you have any prescription medications, you unfortunately will not be able to mail those medications from the US if they run out. And some US prescriptions aren't recognized abroad, and you may not be able to refill them in Prague without seeing a provider first or seeing a doctor first that will have to, reevaluate you or may not give you the same prescription. So it's really important that you have all of your medications for the entire time abroad. For those medications, if you need a letter basically overriding the 90-day supply that most providers give you, please reach out to me. Please let me know. We are happy to create basically a form saying that you're going abroad, you need medication for the entire year, and historically that has worked out really well. Students have been able to get their medications abroad with that letter. And sometimes you may have to pay out of pocket for appointments and GeoBlue reimbursements as well. And another thing that we want to highlight is that walk-in clinics don't really exist in Prague. So if you are sick, there are a couple things you'll have to do. You'll have to take out your emergency card and call a clinic, state your symptoms, say that you have GeoBlue, and basically kind of shop around to find a clinic in GeoBlue's system that is able to take you. I know that process is a little bit arduous and long, and I know sometimes students want to just go to the emergency room if they're feeling sick and really bad, but in the Czech medical system, emergency rooms are really only reserved for people who are having extremely life-threatening circumstances. So if it's anything even a little bit less than a really, really life-threatening circumstance, then the medical care there may give you a hard time. So if you have some sort of illness there, it's important to kind of go through the steps to schedule something there. And I will pass off some things to Emily, just speaking a little bit about personal safety and situational awareness as well.
Thanks, Celine. Hi, everyone. Sorry again for bailing due to Wi-Fi. I know we're over time, so I'm going to go really quickly through a lot of this. Feel free to just continue posting questions in the chat, and then we will send these slides as well to you. This is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go into detail. Prague is a very safe city. It's also very touristy, so be aware when you're in major tourist zones, and think about your personal safety. Don't go alone at night. Use the buddy system. Be aware is the most important thing here. The other thing, we'll talk about that in housing. Lock your apartment doors and your building doors. This may seem obvious, but oftentimes because of the fact that there are different types of locks, students forget. Okay, so again, I'm going to go quick through this. This is a really complex, lots of complicated subjects here. We also, again, refer to the guide in your online account. In a nutshell, Prague in the Czech Republic is not a diverse place. It is a predominantly white country. There's not a lot of racial diversity due to the fact that the country was, under communism and basically not open to immigration and emigration. So for some of our students of color, this can be difficult. This can be an adjustment. And again, we don't want to speak for any particular student or for any one of you, but if you have any concerns or questions about how your identity may impact your time in Prague or how your time in Prague may impact your identity, please reach out to Celine, and we'll be happy to share some additional resources and speak to you about that. Prague is fairly open in terms of LGBTQ plus identities. Religion is interesting. It's not a religious country at all. It's one of the most secular countries in the world. But if you follow a faith and you want to participate in that while you're in Prague, there are, of course, plenty of options as well. Cost of living is fairly cheap. I think you'll find that things are way cheaper in Prague than in the US, other than clothes and maybe electronics. But again, let us know if you have any questions. I apologize for going so fast on such complex topics.
And I'd just like to add.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Emily.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd just like to add that if there ever is a moment where you are faced with discrimination in regards to your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, your religion, please do not feel like you have to stay silent about that. On-site staff is, ready and willing to speak with you, to work with you, and to just kind of talk and walk through you. Maybe not absolutely solving the issue, but speaking with you and walking with you, processing with you, and speaking with you. So on-site staff is going to be there to help you as you navigate being in, you know, such a different environment abroad.
Okay, so when you actually arrive in Prague, you will receive comprehensive arrival instructions. If you arrive before 4 p.m. on arrival day, you will be able to be picked up with CET shuttles. If you arrive early, we already talked about that. You won't be able to check into your apartment, so make your own arrangements. And then you can come to the apartments that morning. If you arrive later on that day of arrivals, depending on what time you arrive, you will either join the group at the welcome dinner, or if it's too late, you'll go to the apartment. The most important part is to let us know what is going on. If you have a delayed flight or a canceled flight or anything else, contact the CET on-site staff member that is listed in your arrival instructions, or contact Celine and we will relay the message. So again, arrive before 4 p.m. on arrival day and you'll be part of the CET shuttles that bring you to the apartments. And if not, you will make your own travel arrangements. Okay, housing and meals. So everyone is staying in apartments. These are residential, standard, regular apartments in buildings that other Czech people or international people live in. So again, this is not a dorm situation. These are apartments. The number of students can range between 3 to 10 per apartments, and there are shared bedrooms unless you indicated that you needed a single for a specific reason. We will share the housing lists just a couple of weeks before you arrive in Prague. The most important thing to remember is not all apartments are exactly the same. This film group is going to be in at least 2 different locations based on apartment availability in Prague, which are quite central. So the apartments are quite central, about 10 minutes from CET, 30 minutes from FAMU. Prague has amazing public transportation, buses and trams and subways, and you get a public transportation pass that allows you to take all of this for free. Please use the public transportation. Please do not Uber everywhere unless it's late at night or an emergency. That's really what makes Prague special. But again, I really want to point out that these apartments that are not all exactly the same. They all have bedrooms, kitchen, bathrooms. Some may have living rooms, some may not. And please be considerate of your neighbors. We will be asking you to sign a housing policy as soon as you get access to your canvas, and you can also do it on site. The most important rule is no overnight guests are allowed in your apartment. That's really important for the respect of your roommates and also for safety and liability. So please no overnight guests. Yes, you will know your roommate is before arrival. We send that about 2 weeks before arrival. So 2 weeks before arrival, you will get your arrival instructions and the housing list, which will tell you who is in your apartment. Meals, so many amazing options in Prague. Prague has an amazing food scene. You can cook and buy groceries and cook in your apartment, go out to eat. You can find anything you'd like, whether that's vegan, vegetarian, kosher, halal, gluten-free. Prague really has an amazing food scene. So consider that. You can go grocery shopping, deliver, all of those things. And again, remember that on the first day when you arrive, there is a group welcome meal. Many of you will be exhausted, but it's a great way to have a first time to meet everybody and to get a nice Czech meal on the very first day. I'll go really quickly through this. You are going to be arriving in January in Prague. It's going to be cold. Please be aware that your apartments may be colder than what you're used to, just because temperature, heating is different in Europe. And please, no space heaters are allowed in the apartments. That's a huge fire hazard. And please also consider your energy consumption. Utilities are really expensive in Prague, and CET covers that, obviously, with housing. But we really ask that you pay attention and turn off the lights, the water, all that in your apartment, and that you consider, living there responsibly. Recycling is huge in Prague and very important to CET. and it's somewhat different than in the US. So everything will be explained at orientation, but please do recycle and put things in the specific bins. Yes, and if anyone has to head out, that's totally fine. We are over time. We will send this as well. But recycling is really important. Really think about that when you get there, and pack some warm items, as it will be cold for the first two months, basically. Independent travel, again, please wait until you arrive in Prague to organize your independent travel. As we already said many times, it's a super busy schedule, so please just wait to get your final schedule. And there are certain places that are either on the travel advisory level 3 or 4, no travel zone, or others that CET restricts travel to. So I'm listing here Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, and Russia, just because those are close to the Czech Republic. These are prohibited. So you are not allowed to travel to these destinations next spring for several reasons. Namely, we don't consider them safe, and you will not be covered by your GeoBlue health insurance if you go to these places. We ask that you tell us whenever you travel independently. It's a super easy form that is posted in your apartment and in the CET center. Okay, we're almost at the end. A quick snapshot of the places that you'll be navigating between the CET center on the left-hand side and FAMU buildings on the right-hand side. The top photo is FAMU main building, which is where your electives will be, right by the river. And then the bottom is Studio FAMU, which is where you'll be taking your core courses. So again, lots of different resources, staff, CET staff are at the CET center, FAMU staff at the FAMU center. It will seem like a lot when you first get there, but in a couple of weeks, you'll be super used to going between all of these places. Okay, so basically next steps to wrap up. Everybody's waiting for the visa. Any questions, let us know. Any updates, please make sure to respond to any consular questions as soon as possible that you get them. Upload your flight itinerary and the travel plans form in your CET account, review all the guides, watch those films on the film list, and fill out the film treatment assignment by January 13th. And again, Celine already talked about the Isaac card. So that is it. We're really looking forward to welcoming you in Prague. Any questions, put it in the chat. We'll stay for another 5 minutes or so, or email us. Thank you so much. We'll send you the recording and the slides, and we hope you have a fantastic semester. Take care, everyone.